If you're spending money on Amazon ads and you're not sure is it working or not, this video is for you. In this video, I will show you how to optimize your Amazon PPC in 2026 without knowing what is bug sheets, using any sophisticated software, just in your campaigns manager. My name is Hrant. I'm the founder of Grant's Amazon marketing agency. We help Amazon sellers to reach 7 and 8 figure fast and profitably. Okay, let's start. Okay, before going deeply into the keywords and campaigns, firstly we need to look at more general things, how the account was performing overall. The first thing we are seeing in this account is that for the last 30 days, the ACOS is 36.71%. We see that the spend was $5,000, and the first thing we want to see, what are the spend tendencies for this account. So basically what we are seeing, it is always fluctuates. The highest points we are seeing here is $220 per day, and here we had $242 per day, and sometimes we also have 138. So basically it fluctuates, and it is very important to connect this spend with this budget setting for sponsored product campaigns. So basically in this case the budget for the whole account is set $220, and we can see that in campaigns we were actually reaching this budget one time in the last 2 weeks. So basically we can keep it, we don't need to increase it, but let's say in the scenario if this setting would be $200, that would mean that we are hitting it. Maybe we would need to either to decrease the bids, either to increase the account level budget in the settings, right? So this is one of the main important things, the budget and spend management, to make sure we are not hitting the budget in our account level budget in our campaigns. Okay, the next thing we want to look the performance by ad type. So we have the sponsored product, sponsored brand, and sponsored display. Mainly we are not really interested in sponsored TV. So let's see. So yeah, for this specific case, you can see that all of the campaigns are sponsored product. There is no sponsored brand or sponsored display spend, which means this opportunity is still untapped, and it's possible to launch those campaigns in the future. The next thing, we want to filter by targeting and see the performance of manual campaigns and automatic campaigns. So we can see that the most of the spend is manual, $4,200 from 5,000, right, that we had, and the ACOS here is a little bit lower. When in auto campaigns, the ACOS is 45%, and we are spending 1,150. So the first opportunity for this account is to optimize the auto campaigns, maybe to add more negations, because it shouldn't be the case that auto campaigns have higher ACOS than manual campaigns. The next thing, we want to filter by purchases that are equal to 0. So we are seeing that from our spend of a little more than 5,000, $1,200 of spend, there are no sales in those campaigns, which is a problem. This number is pretty high. This is definitely should be optimized after when we go into the campaign level. Okay, let's also look at the same thing by targets. So basically change the level from campaigns to targets here. We can do that now after the last Amazon new updates. So we open here purchases equals to 0, the same, but now not on the level of campaigns, but on the level of targets. And you can see that the number is even higher here. Most of the spend has no purchases, which is let's check filter by spend. So you can see that the highest target, highest spending target that has no purchases for the last 30 days is $46, which is not too much. I know that for this account the average product cost is much higher, around $80-90. So basically this can be acceptable for this specific case, but maybe the PPC specialist launched too many new campaigns or launched too many new products, and that's why we have that high of the percentage of campaigns and targets without order. So basically in this case, maybe we don't even need to stop something, but possibly we can consider the top ones by spend, right? But overall you see that this spend is highly distributed among different keywords, so it's not that big problem. Then let's also filter now targets by ACOS. I don't see ACOS here, we cannot. Okay, so for the last 30 days, the highest ACOS target is 78%. So basically we can consider to stop these targets, but at the same time I don't see something radically bad, right? Because the average ACOS is 37% and the highest targets ACOS is 78%, where the spend is only $32. So overall this account is in that way optimized pretty okay. Basically we have a lot of targets. When we go down a little bit, only $32, 34, and 10 targets lower, our ACOS is in 40s. So basically it's not a big problem. The main problem was really the targets without orders, but we also had here the highest spend on acceptable level. Okay, yeah, the next thing we want to get back to the campaigns. Let's filter by the spend and see the bidding strategy. So what I'm recommending is always to have bidding strategy if it's already launched campaign. If you want to build sustainable Amazon business, your most campaigns should be dynamic bidding down only. So in this specific case, we can see that here we have one campaign which is ended, which was up and down, but overall we can see that everything is down only, which is a good sign. If it would be up and down or fixed bids, I would recommend it to change to down only. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is budgets. So we go here. Let's open the same last 30 days. And here you can see that average time in budget is 99%, which means that most of our campaigns are always active. We don't have a problem with the budgets. Only a couple of campaigns are active 85% per day, 97, 95, 97. So if this number is higher than 92, 95%, that means that everything is fine. If this number is lower than that values, that means that you can either decrease the bid in your campaign, either increase the campaign level budget. In this specific case, everything is good, it's 99%, we don't have this problem. Okay, now we understood how our account does overall on a strategy level, with the budgets, with the targets, with the campaign level, spend, and etc. And now we can go and look what happens inside of the campaigns, right? So let's filter the campaigns by the spend, the same for the last month. Okay, and let's choose this phrase campaign. So basically, the first thing we want to look at is here the bid adjustment tab. We got here. Okay. Now we can see how the placements are performing. So in this case, the rest of the search placement has 24% ACOS and top of the search has 17.4% ACOS. Let's look the last 3 months. Okay. So as you can see, the product pages are not doing that well. These two placements are doing almost the same, so I don't want really to change the bid adjustment because on both periods they were doing approximately the same. Yeah, and product pages is almost not spending. Technically, I could decrease all the bids for all the targets, let's say on 5%, and then increase the bid adjustment for 5% on top of the rest, also on 5%, and that way we could have even less spend on product pages. But for this case, it is just $2.8. I will keep it the way it is. Then we can also check the performance for business placement. This is a very important thing. For a lot of campaigns, this business placement can be a really game changer things. For some accounts, the B2B placement can generate for me like 30-40% of all sales. So I really highly recommend to look here. Okay, so for example, let's look at the lifetime. Yeah, you can see that on the lifetime for now, 7 clicks, $6 of spend and no orders. I'm gonna keep it as a 0% for now. Okay, let's go here. Also, we can look at the negative targets. You can see that there are no negatives in this campaign on campaign level, and also no negative products. Let's check also on ad group level. Okay, yes, we also don't have negatives for ad group level. I recommend to look at the search term. So for example, let's check the last 65 days. Let's filter by total cost. So as you can see here, potentially this search term can be considered to be negated, but it has acceptable performance. Let me open the ACOS. So it has 53%. Yeah, this is the only candidate for now. We can consider that everything else does pretty okay. Okay, let's look at targets inside of the campaign. So firstly, what I'm recommending to do is look at the 3 months performance. At the 3 months performance level, we can see that of course, we are filtering by total cost, and we can see that this target maybe we can consider to stop, but at the same time, before stopping it, we want to check the product price. So let's see the product price. So the product price is $75 and $71. So that means that this target spent only less than half of the product price, which means if the next click will result in the order, it will have somewhere 35-40% ACOS, and even now we are not really ready to stop it because this might be a good keyword for us. At the same time, you can see that, for example, this target has very low spend on the last 3 months, but has very low ACOS. We can consider to increase the bid here on 10%. So basically how we're doing this, we're choosing here, then about action, adjust bid, increase bid by percentage, and choose 10% here. Also, let's check the last month. Okay, here we can see that also nothing goes crazy. All the top spenders are getting some sales with acceptable ACOS. So maybe we can consider to increase the bid for these 3 targets, right? How we can do this? Before we're doing it, let's check the performance of the last week. Let's choose this one. Okay, last week, this keyword has a little bit of spend and no orders. Let's check also the week before this week. Okay, it had one order with 16% ACOS. And also you can see that the week before last week it spent $11.5, and the last week it spent only $3.5, which means that the spend level decreased. Even though this target is very good for us, we can consider to increase the bid on 10%. So in general, I recommend to increase the bids and decrease the bids from 5% to 10%. If something goes a little bit wrong, you can decrease it on 5%. If something shows potential, you can increase on 5%. If something does extremely well and spend decrease, like in that case, you can increase the bid on 10%, or at the same time, if something does really bad, you can decrease the bid on 10%. In very rare scenarios, if traffic, for example, is not coming and you want it to come faster, you may consider to increase the bid on 20%, but most of the scenarios, the magnitude of the change will be either 5%, either 10% from the bid. Okay, to summarize, before you optimize the targets in such campaigns, you want to check the 4 periods. The first period is the last 3 months for this specific case, right? Then you want to look at the last month. Then you want to look at on the last week and the week before last week. So basically, you need to look at the 4 periods before making a decision what you are doing with this target. What I'm recommending is to open 4 different tabs and basically open those periods in those 4 different tabs and always switch between them and go and look at each target one by one and make decision. Either you decide to stop it, either you decide to decrease the bid, either to increase the bid, and in that way you will make your decision as accurate as possible and as fast as possible. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to show to you is a daily optimization. So basically the previous optimizations which I was showing on a campaign level, you want to do it once per week, like choose one day, let's say it's Friday, the Thursday, and do it always on that day to make sure that there is no daily seasonality there. The week is the shortest period where there is no like seasonalities there, and you can compare full week with the full week. In that way you will make robust decisions, and the performance of campaigns and the results will aggregate with the week, and you will get better and better results. But at the same time, you also want to check the performance of campaigns not just once per week, right, and also daily. And the goal of this daily optimization is really to make sure that everything goes right the way you want it to go, right? So what we can do here, let's say we want to check the yesterday. Let's filter by the spend. So for example, in this specific case, you can see that the spend of the highest spending campaign is very low in compare with total account spent, right? $7 in compare with $200. There are some other accounts where it can be, for example, 40% of the spend can have one campaign. In that sense, if it's the case, you can go inside of this campaign, check all the targets. But for this specific case, for the daily optimization, we can check, for example, the budget. Is it not capping? You can see that for this case, the total cost was 7.25 and the budget was 8. With high chance, the budget capped here. Possibly, we can consider to increase the campaign level budget here, if this is a good campaign. So we can go inside of it, check the performance of the last week, the week before week, and last month, and if it's good, we can consider to increase it, for example, to $12 per day. And for example, you consider this campaign is also capping. So this is the one of the things you can do on a daily optimization. And also, if this spend share is very high for the account, for multiple campaigns, right? You can go inside of it and check some keywords. Maybe they are overspending, right? Maybe you did a weekly optimization and spent on one keyword increased 3 times, and this is not something you wanted to have. And in that sense, you can optimize, decrease the bid, and make a decision. So summing up, goal of the daily optimization is make sure that everything is right, that the spend also goes right, it's not decreased radically, right? The campaigns are not capping here, some targets are not going crazy, and etc. This is basically the goal of daily optimization. You don't want to spend more than 30 minutes per day on a daily optimization. And you can ask me what to do if you just launched a new campaign. So basically, if you launched a new campaign for this specific case, you can do this weekly optimization on a daily level, because you still don't know is this campaign working or not. You might want to increase the bids daily before the spend comes. So in this specific case, yes, you can do this weekly optimization on a daily basis if it's a new campaign. You want to do it, for example, for 1-2 weeks until you feel that it goes in the right direction, and then you can start optimizing it once per week with this daily checks. Okay, that's it. If you have questions, let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next videos.